Welcome to the Unstuck Podcast. I'm your host, Drew Cost, and I have today a special guest. I found this young lady on Threads and was amazed by not only the information she gives, but it's given from a pure heart. She's not out there promoting, buy this, buy this, buy this. I'm going to sell this. She's just giving information and she's helping out, and she's actually doing it from a really, really good place. So this is going to be a special episode. I can't wait to learn from her, and I can't wait for you guys to get some information from her. And I'm going to let her introduce herself. The wonderful, the magnificent Emily Adams. Welcome to the episode.
Thank you so much. And I'm so honored that you called me young. So thank you for that. And also the acknowledgement from the pure heart. So I appreciate that. Thank you. A little bit to introduce myself. A lot of people know me for my story for leaving the Amish culture. And it's also a perfect fit for this unstuck conversation because I felt like in my early life, probably from 12 till I left at 17 in the middle of the night, just jumped out of a 2-story house and never looked back. So I feel like that 12 to 17 window, I felt like so stuck. And when I made that jump, I also realized that that was like the leap to jumping without a net, not knowing if the net was going to be there to catch me. And so I'm happy to have that conversation and just a little bit more about me. So I'm a single mom of 2 boys, teenagers, so we're in that stage. And I am also the co-founder of Transformative Leadership, where we teach business and leadership. We have a very unconventional approach to this. We're super excited just to build and help small businesses and also larger corporations like simplify operations and really learn how to be leaders of self first. That's kind of our philosophy. And then I would say my hobbies used to be powerlifting, and now I've transitioned into bodybuilding. And you can catch me outside in nature and probably reading, writing, or doing some kind of spiritual stuff. So that's kind of like the high level version.
Love it. So I already categorized those into 3 categories that we can go down. So Emily told me in the beginning before we hopped on that we can ask whatever questions that we would like. So we want to dig into, I want to find out what was the jumping out of the physical window like from being in the Amish. I don't know if you want to call it culture or religion.
It's a cult.
Okay, I let her say it. From 12 to 17, what was it like growing up until 12?
Yeah, so just to kind of give you a quick overview, the Amish culture is a very male-dominant world. As a female, your career path is there to sit and have babies, cook, clean, and sew. And at a young age, I was always a daddy's girl. My dad was an entrepreneur, had multiple businesses, and I started refusing to listen to my mom to learn to cook and to sew. So she got frustrated, and she was like, "You need to go hang out with your dad." Which was honestly the best thing that happens because I learned so many business things from him. And when I would hang out with my dad, there was like no drama. There was no bullshit, right? And when I was with my mom, it was just like all this drama. Like the culture is not as peaceful as what the world thinks it is.
Oh, wow.
And so it's very trauma filled and it's very judgmental. It's very gaslighting. And I will say growing up, like the programming as a female, I was programmed, shut up, be quiet. No, your opinion doesn't matter. The guy makes all these decisions, right? And you don't have a career path. So me being, my rebel self, I go to school until 8th grade, which is equivalent to a 6th grade education. And I always dreamed that I was going to be this career woman. I didn't know how, I wouldn't tell my parents because I would get in trouble for saying that stuff because they wanted to keep you in the culture. Fast forward at 16, I lose my best friend in a buggy accident, and her boyfriend a semi sideswiped the buggy and killed both of them.
Mm.
And at her funeral, they had stood up and said, you know, they're not sure if she can go to heaven. And I was rocked. Like my world was rocked. And I was like, okay, that's the icing on the cake. I was already thinking that you guys were all crazy here. But now I know you're all crazy. Like internally, I had that switch and I was like, I'm going to get out. Regardless of what it takes, I'm going to get out. I didn't know how. And then they found out that I was thinking about that way because I refused to join their church. So if once you leave, you don't have the option to go back because you're going to go through a shunning process. You're going to go through all this thing. So once they found out I was going to leave, that's when really the gaslighting started.
Oh.
The like you're putting your parents and you're killing your parents. Like my parents would do it first, and then the church came in, and then the family came in. So there was like this 6 months to 9 months stint of like, I never knew who would show up at the door and just ask to speak to me to try to convince me to stay, to gaslight me into staying. So fast forward, I leave, right? I just decide, so I'll go back a few steps. I got to the point my trauma response was shut down and not speak. So I didn't speak to my family that I was, my parents, my two brothers that were living at the time for like 3 weeks. I wouldn't say a word. And so my parents were like, okay, we got to do something with her. They tried to force me to go to counseling. I was like, I'm not going to your guys' crazy counseling because they're just going to brainwash me into some more bullshit.
Yeah.
And the resilience that I built of like, I can look at you and block you out was such a trauma response. So they asked me to go live with my sister who was married at the time, and she lived like 2 hours away. So I was like, okay, cool. Like I'll go live with my sister and her husband. They had, kids. And then it's there where I realized like, there's no way I could stay. And so I made a plan to jump out of the window in the middle of the night. And
you made it to jump out of the window of your sister's house or your?
Yeah, my sister, when I was living with my sister.
Wow.
I wrote her a letter and I was like, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. And I left. I was 17. So technically they could have, still made me come back because I was not a, adult.
Oh, yeah.
But from there, it was like a mix of culture shock mixed with trauma, mixed with programming of the Amish religion. And it was a wild ride. Like it was a wild ride.
Now, where did you go?
So I had outside connections, and this is also full transparency. If you go to my YouTube, you're going to see the story, but the outside connection was a 38-year-old guy that had groomed me to believe that he would take care of me. And later, things did not work out in that way.
Wow.
And he knew how the Amish worked. He also knew that, my family had a lot of money, and he was hoping that he could get married into the money.
Wow.
That's a whole other story for another day.
Oh, that's a part 2. That's a part 2. Now, when you like, what gave you at that age, like the ability to say, I'm gonna jump out, I'm gonna go find my way, and not know completely if it's gonna work? Like, what made you turn that switch on?
It was like I looked at my options. Option A was stay and get married and have kids for the rest of my life and commit to that life. Or option B, make the jump and see what happens.
It sounds like maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like that's how like the business stuff probably started merging from learning from your dad. I don't think anybody can be in business for more than a year and not be relentless.
Yeah. So I will say in the business side, so relentless and drive. So that is one thing I will say, like I have drive like no other. And I say that because when I left, I went to go get my GED and the lady was like, I'm sorry, like you're testing at 6th grade. We never had geometry. We never had all these things. My second language was German. So never had language, never wrote a paper a day in my life. And she was like, it's going to take you a year. And I was like, no, it's going to take me like 6 months, and I'm going to get my GED, and then I'm going to go to college. Well, fast forward, I ended up getting pregnant, and funny story for another day, but I didn't realize I was pregnant.
Wow.
And then had two boys and went through an abusive marriage, left the marriage. And then I was like, okay, I'm about to go to school. Like, I'm about to go to college. And so I tested into Purdue, and my student advisor was like, yeah, you are working full time. I was working about 60, 70 hours a week in automotive. That was kind of like my, into automotive would hire you without a GED. So that's how I got into that culture. And then I went to Purdue, and then I ended up graduating in 4 years. And I would say those 4 years, most of that was trauma driven. That's how I dealt with things, was just working, was just learning, was just like driving. And then I stayed in the automotive industry for over a decade, got the positions that I wanted, and then realized, okay, this industry is really messed up. But I learned so much business in the industry, and some of those tools still today I do use. So I'm super grateful for that.
Now, with you leaving the Amish cult, you getting married, you getting pregnant, what were like two things that you learned that you still use today?
Listen to your intuition. I knew intuitively I should not be getting married to this person at all. At all. The other one is almost taking my power back from my life, to be like, you know what? I gave him that power. I allowed him to manipulate me. I allowed him to abuse me. And now I'm getting it back. And I came back with full on revenge. Like, I was in FU mode for like a long time. And I started competing in powerlifting, went to nationals with powerlifting. Like, I was like, I'm about to show you. And then later I learned in therapy that was probably not healthy, but it served me in the moment.
I think the cool thing with that is, I believe anybody who goes through, we all go through traumatic experiences, but I believe you either have two options or three options. You get the person similar to me and you, who are like, we're going to just go hard at these things instead of stopping. You get the person who completely stops and does nothing, or you get the person who just becomes the victim and they just can't get past that. How did you know this was trauma that was happening eventually?
Not until I went through a huge spiritual awakening, and I realized that this is trauma my entire life. Like, I had started slowly unpacking some of the programming. I accepted my family would never accept me for who I am. I started, some of that, but I had a lot of resentment. I had a lot of, the forgiveness. There was no way in the world I was ever going to forgive them. And going through my spiritual awakening, I realized that as long as I held on to that and I allowed them to have that power over me, I was the one that was losing. So going through that spiritual awakening and really taking a look at my identity that I had set for myself, and being able to learn, okay, I can shift this. I no longer need to have resentment. I know I can have boundaries, right? I wasn't raised with boundaries. I wasn't raised with respect. I wasn't raised, like, I was never said, like, my parents never said, I love you growing up. Yeah. So all these things, unpacking these things. And I would say basically I had to learn to become my own parents, to be able to parent myself.
That's powerful in a good way. And I believe the reason why I think it's so important to hear people talk about it is because you don't know someone's story by just looking at them, and you don't know like how much stuff they fought through to be living a peaceful life later on, or to be living a life where it looks like things are perfect. Like they fought through a lot of hell. Just coming out of a religion or a cult alone I believe, messes with you spiritually for a long time. Now, you said you had a spiritual awakening. You mind sharing about what that was like?
Yeah, it was like a tornado, but it was like going out down rabbit hole after rabbit hole. So it was kind of like, so fast forward, I had got married a second time. And this is what propelled my spiritual awakening. He came home. We were together for 7 years. We were married for 2. Again, did not listen to my intuition. I knew I shouldn't have been married to him. But we were that couple where everyone's like, oh my goodness, like you guys are perfect together. You guys have it all together, right? And I listened to that instead of listening to my intuition. And he came home one day and he was like, yeah, I no longer love you. And I was like, what?
Oh, no.
And I was like, what happened? And then, tried the whole counseling thing and later found out he was cheating on me.
Oh.
So that propelled my spiritual awakening. And I'm forever grateful for that, because I went from living in the Midwest to deciding to pack up my boys and move to Florida, where I'm in St. Pete, Florida now. And that's my home. And forever grateful for that. But the spiritual awakening, it was like a lot at once for me. And I honestly, I can't even put into words the person I was back then to now. And it wasn't just like one thing that propelled it, but my divorce was one of them. It was like, okay, I need to look at a hard look at my life. Because I am not living life for anyone else anymore. And then I was already somewhat into personal development, but I started looking into meditation. I started looking into reprogramming my brains. I started with affirmations. I don't do affirmations now because that's not where I'm at, but meditation is still a part of my routine, and running meditation is like key for me. So meditation was huge. And then I started working with some coaches, which again, I think that some coaches out there, they're amazing. They helped me collapse timelines in a huge way. But I say that with a caveat is I outgrew a lot of my coaches. And that's something that not a whole lot of people talk about in the spiritual world.
Yeah.
So I feel like, that spiritual awakening, it was kind of one of those things of like, wow, I can't believe that I've been living my life in such a box, in such closed-mindedness, and then seeing still how much programming I had from the Amish culture of like, life's got to be hard, money doesn't grow on trees, and you got to give more than you receive. The give more than you receive, listen, that one was a journey because I was such a people pleaser. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's amazing. I gotta convince you to do episode 2 one day.
Don't even convince me. I'm there. Just tell me when.
Right. Because the outgrowing your coach's part. What we sometimes believe is that because someone is a coach, that they're infallible, or that everything that they say is gonna line up perfectly with us. You had said something in one of your threads that a coach had told you to stop doing a certain thing, and it was really how you naturally flow, and they told you to stop doing that. You mind touching on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because this coach was like a high level coach. Like he coached thousands of people, and he had I'm not going to discredit that. I did get some good results through him. I also learned some valuable lessons of regardless of where someone is at. I don't care if you're the president of the United States. I don't care what your title is, I will never put you on a pedestal. And the
Yes.
reason why is because my intuition doesn't lie, right? So I'm very in tune with myself. And he had told me, stop doing YouTube and only focus on Facebook and Instagram for your clients, like to find your clients. So I stopped, and that actually held me back from making money, because YouTube is where it's an easy platforming for me, and I enjoyed it and I loved it and I loved creating content. And it hadn't been just until recently that I actually got back to it. I was like, let's go back and look why I stopped YouTube. Why did I stop? And there's this other thing of like, as people that are running businesses online, you got to be on every platform. I don't subscribe to that, right? I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm just not going to. That's not how I want to run my business. But if you listen to all the coaches out there, they're going to tell you, show up on social media every day. No, I refuse to subscribe to that belief.
Especially if it's not something you want to do, because you're gonna show up begrudgingly. You're gonna show up bad, and like you said, YouTube is probably one of the longest lasting platforms, one of the most credible ones. And imagine if you did stay. So how did you get over that? I don't know if you did have any regret, like I should have just kept doing it and not listen to him. How did you close this gap to be like, I'm going to go back to putting stuff on YouTube?
Yeah, for a hot second, I kind of beat myself up, but then I was like, wait, I'm shooting myself. So shooting is shaming, or that's my philosophy. So every time I say the word, like, I should have stayed, I'm like, no, you're just shaming yourself for not staying. But instead I was like, you learned a really valuable lesson, and no one is going to ever tell you what to do and what not to do, and where to market and where not to market, because you have to be able to listen to your intuition to be able to know what feels good, what does not feel good. Some days I will get on my Instagram stories. Other days, it may be 3 or 4 days straight before you're not going to see me. And I always tell people, like, don't go to Instagram and Facebook. Like, LinkedIn is my thing. YouTube, that's where I'm showing up at. And Threads.
I love it. Threads is like that breath of fresh air away from all of them. And I'm like, I hope Threads stays this way. Don't add anything to it. Just let it stay this way for us people. So with the Amish, with the breakups, moving the kids to Florida, going through coaches, how did you get involved with transformative leadership?
So this business was actually born. So my business partner, me and her met in automotive, and she actually hated me to start with because I was an auditor for her production line at the time.
Jeez.
And I came out and I was like, I was very, like, my personality is direct to the point, like no bullshit. And I still operate that way even with clients. Like, if you need some really extra fluffy love, I'm going to send you to my business partner. That's her, not me. Like, I'm going to be direct, and we're going to get to the root cause of it, and then we're going to move on. There's no need in wasting time. And that was my approach when we met. I was like, hey, look, you have here's all the things you need to fix before the audit. I'll be out at the end of the week. And I closed the book and I walked away. I didn't bother to introduce myself. I knew she was newer to the company. And we always joked, she was like, I had no idea. You came in there like a tornado and left like a tornado. And so we had met in the automotive culture, and then we became friends, and we just continued on. And then through my spiritual awakening, we kind of reconnected. And then we were kind of on the same path through the spiritual awakening part of it. And then we realized that in automotive industry, and I was in software as well for a little bit, every industry has the same challenges. And then small business have the same challenges. And that is operations. Like, they all have these great business visions and business ideas, but you don't know how to operationalize it.
Yeah.
And then you suck as a leader. And some of you don't even need the leader title. Like I had leaders that were not leaders. Like, one of my managers in automotive, he threw the phone because I refused to break a policy. And I was like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be my boss, right? So then we just really figured out like, how can we bridge the gap to have both sides to go in? Let's clean up your operations side, make it simple, not make it so complex. Nobody needs complexity. And then how can we also teach you how to lead, like truly lead yourself and lead your team? And that's how it was born. Um, I will say we're like yin and yang, and there's certain things that, my human design is manifestor, so I'm very like high vision, and then she's like more small details. So we balance each other out
That's perfect then.
very much, yeah. And we're like so different in so many ways. I'm the 4 a.m. person. She's like, nah, I'm rolling out of bed like at 8 or 9.
And that works. That works for some people, right? The
Yeah.
cool thing is, we both know you get the business ideas, and right now social media is pumping you to be like, just go and launch the business. And we're like, the business is not going to be just what you're actually doing, like with the customer. Like, so even like if you're like, I'm going to be a hairstylist, half of the business isn't actually doing the hair. It's
Yeah.
all the other stuff that social media doesn't show us that goes along with that. So how do you actually get people to come to a place where they actually want to listen and learn like the business parts?
So that's interesting because some of them are already there. They know it in their soul that, yeah, I'm not going to be able to grow and scale. And I will say business ideas are cheap. And I've got business ideas all day long. My business brain is on all the time. I can monetize anything like that. Like I can show you, oh, you want to be a coach that teaches relationship? Cool. Here's your group program. Here's your ebook. Here's this. Like I can map that out in 10 minutes, right? It's because that's what I'm gifted at. But it's the execution. And it's like we started going back to business owners now when they're like, we want to add this stream of income. Well, before we add that stream of income, you need to look at your current situation and be honest. And then we're going to teach you like intuition, what is from your head and what is from your heart, because a lot of times those are not lined up.
No.
And a lot of times we will take our clients through this exercise. We don't really have a name for it. We'll be like, okay, let's get some clarity. And we'll take them through this exercise. We'll be like, how much money do you want to make? And immediately their ego spits a number out, right? So the number is maybe 100K. And I'm like, okay, cool, 100K. And I'm like, now close your eyes and I will put them into their body where they're feeling it in their body. Because your body never lies. It never lies. And so when I put them in their body and I say, feel into these numbers and give me a number from 1 to 10. And I started saying 250,000. Oh, that's a 10 in my body, right? But your ego was out here saying 100K. So a lot of times when we do that, we expand them also to be like, okay, so you actually want to make 250K instead of 100K. So stop telling yourself that story and map it out to 250K.
Oh, that's powerful.
So being able to teach them those tools, and the other thing too is like, now that you know this, stay in your body and listen to your body and see what's coming out. Because at the end of the day, that's you tapping into your intuition too. And so when you have coaches trying to sell you, listen to your body. Does it feel good? Does it feel sleazy? Do I want to run my business like this? Do I not? So the tool of listening to your body is like key. And that's one of the first things, especially small business owners, we will teach them. And the other thing too, some people are really good at business, but their brain holds them back. So sometimes they just got to flip that switch. And I always say radical responsibility and honesty. If you can't be honest with yourself, we will be honest with you. Yeah, there's no doubt. Like we will call it as it is. Like you sit here and say you have this problem, but when we get to the root of it's a worthiness problem. It's a not enoughness problem. So you need to heal that wound, whatever that wound looks like. And we can give you resources, but we cannot do the healing work for you. That's not our responsibility. So it is your responsibility to go back. We can give you an action plan. We can give you resources. But if you come back to us and you haven't done the work, you're wasting our time. and you're wasting your own time. And at some point, coaching and consulting, it's kind of like an exchange of energy, right? When I show up on calls and I see you're not making progress, I'm like, man, like what's going on, right? It's an exchange of energy. I don't show up, in my business being like, well, I just didn't do the work. It's not acceptable. So, I do feel like we do screen a lot of our clients. And if they're also not in a financial space to invest, we could say, hey, here's our free resources. Come back when you're ready, because we will never sell a package or sell someone something and push, oh, put it on a credit card or do this or do that. You have to do what you feel better. Because there are so many coaches out there that will say, there's a line of credit. Yeah, I can support you getting a line of credits if that's what your body is telling you to do and not what your mind is telling you to do. Because I can't tell you, when I started personal development and on my spiritual journey, I dumped like 200K in coaches and courses.
Wow.
And I swore I would never do that to other business owners.
I love that, because especially when the pandemic happened, everybody became a coach.
Yeah.
Every coach was spitting out, not every coach, but a lot of coaches were spitting out, if you don't have the money right now, just take out a line of credit. You got to believe in yourself. And what you said is something I wholeheartedly agree with. If there's areas that you haven't healed in, they will show up in your business.
Yeah.
Like there's no getting around it. They're going to show up. It's more so if you're willing to be like, hey, unworthiness is right here. So this is why I only charge $10 when I should be charging more. It's not being money hungry, but I should be charging more, because there's a lot that goes into this. Healing does have a place in business, and hearing your story from up to 12 and then 12 to 17, you've been on a healing journey.
Yeah.
Like a real, as you said, a tornado or tsunami. But you've been on one, and I think this is what I love, because it equips you to be a leader, business coach, but it also equips you to be someone who actually can listen and see like, hey, this is where this person's really stuck at. They're not stuck at, they need more grind. They need a better system.
Systems. And the other thing I would say is healing never ends. There's just layers to it. And it took me a long time to realize that. And if you want to take your healing to the next level, start a business or get in a relationship. Like, that's facts.
Do it. Or powerlift.
Well, I mean, that too. That's where all the aggression, that's like how I move my energy, right? Is working out. Like, let me go run and I'm good, but don't talk to me until I go run.
I told someone recently, I was like, the 3 hardest things you're gonna do in life is, if you become a parent, you're gonna realize you're always growing and you're always working through something.
Yep.
The second thing is, if you start a business, it's not gonna go the exact way that you first planned that it's gonna go. So that's gonna teach you something. And then third, if you just literally have any sort of relationship, they all challenge you in so many ways. But I'm going to get Emily on a second interview podcast episode, because there was so much that I want to hear about and learn about. But we're coming to an end. Emily, how could someone, if they decided, I want to get my systems in order, because I'm pretty sure you've heard of it, the book The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. He talks about, having systems and then having letting the systems actually run the business. How does someone even build the courage to say, Emily, I need help, I'm embarrassed with where I'm at? What advice would you give to someone to come to you?
So I would say, first off is we hold a very non-judgmental space. And if you come to me and you're like, You know, I am like, I've been operating this way for years. Trust me, you're not the only business owner out there. And it's very an open and candid conversation. So we do calls with all of our, potential clients. And that literally looks like we're just going to get on a phone call. We're going to listen and we're going to tell you what we see, how we see we can help you, if we can help you. And if not, we're going to send you somewhere that needs help. So if you need marketing help, we have a marketing person we send you to. If you need a therapist, we have a therapist we can send you to. So literally, it's just send a message. And also remember, I'm human. We're both human in our business. We do not have our stuff together all the time either. We are not perfect. And don't put us on a pedestal too. Like, just remember, the pedestals don't exist over here.
How many books have you written, Emily?
So I have one, and then I'm laughing because I keep getting this reminder to continue to write. I have one, and then I have like 4 or 5 started on my laptop.
Yeah. When are we getting the second one?
So it's interesting because with that one, I'm not putting the deadline on it. It's my first one. I put a deadline on it, and then I was just kind of creating to create. But my first one was very therapeutic for me to get my story out there, kind of made it into like a self-help book. But my next ones they're very different. And so, it's just really finding the time. It's not finding the time because that's an excuse, but it's putting the time in my calendar to be like, sit down. I have voice notes, tons of voice notes. I just need to put them all together.
There you go. There you go. There you go. So guys, you heard it from Emily's mouth. We're going to see her for a second episode because I would love to unpack more the Amish cult. And I would definitely love to unpack more the powerlifting and bodybuilding because I have similar background with those. So when we see her the second time, depending on when we see her, we might have the second book out. We don't know, but it might.
Don't put that pressure out there.
In case it's not out, I'll make sure to link her information in the show notes so you guys can go not only follow her. If you feel that your business needs help, you can go work with her. And thirdly, just follow the YouTube for her journey and everything that she's doing. Emily, any last parting words you want to give the guests?
Don't let your brain keep telling you that you're stuck because you're not stuck. You always have a choice. Woo. No matter how bad your situation is, you always have the choice to choose again.
Woo. Is that a coined phrase?
It's actually similar out of my book, From Choice to Change. So
powerful, powerful. So guys, Emily is leaving. I'm leaving. We'll get back with you guys pretty soon, but make sure you go on the show notes and follow Emily. Go and show her some love. Emily, thank you again for coming on today. I learned a lot, and I'm sure these guests learned a lot as well.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good one.